We all love a good 911 GTS, don't we? I think ever since the 997, when this model came out, it's been this like Goldilocks car that was the perfect amount of performance without going to GT products, while maintaining that famed usability that makes the 911 so unique in the sports car space. And then when you and I look for a 911 on the used market, we inevitably always look at the GTS first, for those reasons as well, which is why the residual values for GTS have been so great over the years. But I think if we're really honest with ourselves, and I've said this to myself as a GTS owner, that if we pull our ego out of it, really the base Carrera can do 95% of what the GTSs so far have been able to do. With the same engine, it's always a bit of a power bump, slightly different looks, but you could achieve all of that in a base Carrera. However, this 992.2 GTS T-Hybrid is a different breed altogether, and I think it's so different that its arrival has actually shook the foundations of what we understand the 911 lineup to be. Why is that? Well, consider this. Every single 911 GTS so far has followed the same formula of using the engine from the Carrera S. For example, in 997.2, it had the 3.8 litre that then was pushed up to 400 horsepower plus, just through software tuning and a sports exhaust system with minimal changes elsewhere. Look at 991.1 and 991.2. Again, the exact same thing, the same engine as the Carrera S with minimal upgrades to it and the sports design package. And then finally, 992 GTS, again, the exact same thing, going well over 400 horsepower, but the same engine. And when it came to aesthetics, it was also the same thing, where you'd basically have sports design package with blackened out trims as the standard element, but everything else, you could almost mimic the look of the GTS if you ordered a Carrera S. Now that is no longer the case with this new car, not in either the engine nor in terms of the aesthetics. But with this T-Hybrid, everybody focuses on the hybrid word, whereas the most exciting thing is the all-new 3.6 litre flat six engine. That's all new in terms of development. It's got nothing shared with the 3 litre. Then that incorporates the hybrid element with an electric motor, a battery, and an all-new e-turbo, giving this up to 540 PS and crazy speeds in a launch control that you won't believe, that I'll show you as we go out for a drive later. And then finally, the cherry on top, the GTS T-Hybrid features unique aesthetics, particularly on the front, that you can't get on the Carrera S or any other model at the moment, thus helping it be distinctive versus everything else. Suddenly, this whole thing is seeming much more exciting than it has in the past. So today we're going to discuss just how much more exciting is it in reality. What is this new engine like? Why is it so loud in the interior? Does the hybrid element interfere with your ownership or your driving? And I also want to discuss one final missing 911 in the portfolio, which is the turbo. So guys, join me as we check out together the brand new GTS T-Hybrid. So today's episode is sponsored by Incogni, and if you are someone who's private like I am, then what I'm going to tell you today is just going to be a huge boon to your life going forward. In our current modern digital world, every single digital experience we have, whether that's using apps, scrolling on social media, using a website, all of these things are trying to gather and collect our personal data, our locations, everything that they can about us. But what you might not realize is that there is an entire industry profiting from our data, and they're called data brokers, and they're not just annoying, they are actually dangerous. These data brokers gather everything they can from your name, your address, your financial records, your court records, phone number, email, but what's worse is there's not a few of them, there's literally hundreds of them doing this. And if you're in the USA, it's even worse. There are people search websites, I won't name them because I don't want anyone to use them, where you can literally find out where someone lives, find out the names of people's families. And this is not fear-mongering. This has happened to people where stalkers have found them, or someone in a road rage incident has decided to find where someone lives. It's absolutely crazy that this information is just freely available out there. Now, the thing is, you can legally force these people to get rid of your data, but the catch here is there's over 200 of them. So doing each one by yourself, one at a time, is going to take hundreds of hours. And that is where Incogni steps in and does the whole thing for you. I signed up a few months ago and I was just shocked how many websites, sites that I've never even heard of, places that I've never even heard of, had my data. Incogni's been working on it and we've gotten rid of 120 so far out of 127. And it happened really quick. They send out these legal takedown requests and literally within the first week, they started knocking these out. And that's what I love about this. I don't have to lift a finger at all. They will do everything. I get like weekly updates. And if you go for their unlimited plan, then you can point out websites or places that you yourself feel might have your data and let them handle it as well. The more of your data that's out there, the more chance of it being in a data breach or a call scam ring or an identity theft ring. And they give you a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can actually test it and see whether they're going to do what they say they will. And of course, as an RBR viewer, I've got you a great discount. Just head over to incogni.com/remove or use my code remove and you will get 60% off their annual plan. So that's 60% off for RBR viewers, which is great. Guys, remove your data before you race. A huge thanks to Incogni for supporting RBR and for you guys for supporting our regular sponsors. Let's get back to the car. So my friends, to begin with, over the years, the 911 has seen a number of milestones when the technology changed drastically enough in order to cause uproar within the community. The first and most famous one was, of course, the shift from air-cooled to water-cooled engines, with purists even today still saying that the last true 911 was a 993. Yet you look at things today and the water-cooled ones are well accepted. In fact, you've got the 996s now climbing in value. Similarly, in 991.2, when we shifted from the naturally aspirated engines to the turbo engines, again, purists were crying foul of throttle response and the lack of the pure sound. But I think today they're regarded probably as some of the best modern 911s, you know, mixing performance and daily usability so completely in still an analog package that has a small enough body. And now I think the next big milestone, the one that we've all kind of been dreading, the inevitable move towards electrification, and that is where this T-Hybrid, I think, is actually going to soften the blow more than we originally thought. And of course, there's a lot of valid concerns that we have around the T-Hybrid that we're still trying to get our heads around. Things like the weight, the price, the purity, the soul, will it still have future-proofness? All of these things lingering on our heads. But I think this is actually a small first step towards it, and it's actually a good step. So let's talk about what Porsche have done. Before we jump into the T-Hybrid, just to recap as to what has changed in the 0.2 generation. First with our base car. The design, quite a bit upgraded now. We've lost the two light setup, so you originally had your main lights and the DRLs underneath. That's gone now for larger air intakes and a more GT style body, as you can tell, particularly on the front and indeed on the rear, with that single thick light bar with the Porsche logo integrated into it. Then in terms of engine, it uses the same 3-litre flat six as it did previously, but now it's got upgraded turbos and it's taken those actually from the GTS and now it makes up to 394. See how easy it was for Porsche to just apply the GTS upgrades to then a base Carrera, which is something that we're going to be discussing in this. So that is your base car. But despite how nice the changes there are, the real headlines are here with the T-Hybrid, where everything significant has changed. Now, yes, the big headline here is that this is the first hybrid performance 911, but don't let that headline distract you from what is the main event, okay? The main event is the all-new flat six 3.6 litre engine that doesn't share anything at all with the previous engine. Instead, it's an all-new unit built from the ground up. It's flatter than the previous one. The reason for this is so they could incorporate those hybrid elements on top of it and not change the center of gravity. How did they make it flatter? Well, first of all, we don't have a wastegate in here because that's handled by the E-Turbo. Our cats sit closer within the engine. We've got a water air charge cooler that now sits within it as well, and we've got an electric oil cooler within there. All of that helping the packaging element in order to keep it flatter and smaller than the previous one. And just this engine by itself produces 485 PS, which is more than the previous GTS. So that's just the combustion side by itself, okay? Then we bring in the hybrid element and let's begin with the boring part, which is the battery, okay? This is a 1.9 kilowatt battery. That's actually similar in size to a 12-volt battery. And this then gives us the basis for our 400-volt entire architecture of the car that a lot of the car runs on. But the nice thing about this battery is it requires no charging. All the recuperation is done while you're driving and through different interactions of your driving with the car, so you never need to worry about that element of the system. So again, our battery sits in a nice position in order to help with our center of gravity. And now the big part, the E-turbo. We've gotten rid of our two turbos previously, replaced with this mono E-turbo, which has an electric motor integrated in between the compressor and the turbine that then spools up to stop lag and to control that boost element. You don't need the wastegate. It can recuperate up to 11 kilowatts in there as well. And then that pairs together with an electric motor within our 8-speed PDK, which has seen an upgrade in order to handle the torque as well. And that gives us 54 PS and 150 Newton meters on top, bringing this car up to 541 PS and a crazy 0 to 60 time now of 2.9 seconds just in a GTS. Now that electric turbocharger is cool, but it's by no means a new innovation. It's actually been used in F1 for years, and it's called an MGUH. In fact, you would have seen it in another manufacturer. AMG started it many years ago in their C43 and their C63, although not to the effectiveness of this. And again, this then helps recoup energy and then use it and reduce lag, as we said. So it is a really great part of a modern hybrid system. Now, Porsche claims that the T-Hybrid only adds 50 kg. That is until you realize that they changed the standard car to be two-seater versus the previous one. That's still a four-seater. So when you bring the seats in, it's closer to like 75 to 80 kg. That's typical Porsche. They care so much about not increasing weight that they were happy to do a little fib about that. But regardless of that, just adding only about 75 kg despite such a great increase in power via this hybrid system is a damn good effort. So massive changes to the GTS that almost make it feel like an all-new model, particularly versus the upgrades that it used to get, which were just a tune and some other bits. So that's great. Now, in terms of other standard features, rear axle steering is now standard in the GTS. PASM, of course, has always been standard and still is. Our PDCC, however, Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control and anti-roll, is now electro-hydraulically controlled, obviously because we have the 400-volt system. And as with other 400-volt anti-roll systems, it reacts faster, it's lighter, and it's just a better system altogether. That is, of course, optional within the GTS, as it has been in the past. And we now have a front lift system as well that reacts faster and can be used at higher speeds. Then we have aerodynamics, where that new design comes in. So you have these 5 flaps on each side, which are active, and they open and close for cooling, depending on the driving situation, the temperature outside, and other factors in order to then cool the car or allow it to remain open. And these work together with new active aero panels underneath our car, which then overall, working with the wing on the rear, help better the aerodynamic value overall and help reduce front lift on the car as well. Aerodynamics then links really nicely to design. We discussed a bit of it with the base 911. I think the whole thing a lot more GT car looking than it ever has been before in terms of the base body. Your active aero on the front really helps designate the GTS as its own model, which is great. We've got the tinted matrix headlights in here with the lovely light graphic in there. I think that looks great. I wasn't sure about losing the DRLs, but I think they kind of make up for it. This is Lugano blue, which looks so much like shark blue, and I can't tell the difference. I need to see them together. Perhaps this is slightly darker, I think. And then we have the Spider RS style wheels, and you can of course get the new GTS wheels with the center lock as well, which I think are a lot nicer looking. On the rear, I do think the rear light bar a bit thick. I love the exhaust positioning being more central, kind of like 991.2 was, and generally the stance of the rear very, very nice indeed. Do also remember that the GTS has its own family, so we have a ton of variants here. We are driving today the GTS 4 T-Hybrid, so it's all-wheel drive. You can get the rear-wheel drive version as well. You can get the Cabriolet, that also comes in either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. And we also have the heaviest of the bunch, which is our Targa with that gorgeous retro roof, and that only comes in all-wheel drive. So, new engine, new look, but also a new price tag. This starts in the UK at £137,000, whereas the previous one was about 106, so a 30k hike on the price of the GTS. Now, including inflation, etc., yes, maybe not as much. And how fair is that when that is now more than the previous turbo was? That is something I will discuss when we go for a drive, shortly, because it's a good point and we need to address it directly. Now, of course, you can add many options to this car, some that are quite noteworthy because they change the car quite a lot. One is the bucket seats that you can get, which are just under £4,000. We've got the PDCC, as we discussed, which is about 2,800. I've never really seen the need with that, so watch out. You do have the aerodynamics package as well, which you can get on this, that again I think is down to personal taste. And finally, a really nice option that I never knew existed in this version, which is the titanium tips for the exhaust, which are just under £1,000 and possibly the coolest thing on the entire options list. Though I would spec very carefully, our car today has what I would consider a normal spec, and it goes up to 156, so just be careful in how you're speccing. You don't need a lot to keep a GTS dynamic. Now, before we go inside and then head outside, a quick note on a missing member of the 911 family, as I mentioned, which is the new 911 Turbo. It's the only one that they haven't shown us yet. We know it's going to be a hybrid, and I want to take some guesses with you today as to what that car is going to be. First of all, I think a safe bet is that it will have the 3.6 litre engine from this car. Another safe bet I also think is that it will be a hybrid, because we've seen the yellow sticker on every single test mule, and the rumours say that it will have 2 of the e-turbos that we see in the GTS. So that could mean a PS output of over 710 PS, probably dropping the 0 to 60 to under 2.5 seconds. So you're still going to have a big gap, hopefully, between GTS and Turbo. Will it be enough of a gap? Will Turbo still have that position that it always had in the past? I'm not sure. We will see. Let's head inside now and let's take a look at the upgraded interior of the GTS. So, jumping in the GTS, always honest on RBR, and I don't like that screen, okay? Let's talk brass tacks straight away. I really mourn the loss of the pre-facelift analog and digital screen. That was the industry leader when it came to merging both the analog world and the digital world in a way that you didn't lose out on either. And I truly do mourn its loss. And it's also because this screen isn't even a great Porsche screen. It's the smallest one they do. It's smaller than the one in the Taycan. And because of that, it misses out on yet another thing it's a stupid heritage thing from 911, right? And only purists like you and me would care about it, but we do care about stupid things. And that is when you have the 5 dials screen in front of you. In historic 911s, you can never see the dials on the edges, but you can see them on this one. And it just annoys me. You shouldn't be able to. Why is the screen that small? Why couldn't we have had the larger screen? It just makes it feel like a step below all the other cars with the larger screens. Yes, you can customize everything in there. Yes, it says GTS. Yes, you have a view on there, which is actually very reminiscent of the GT product cars from pre-facelift. Then you can choose the content. We know all of that. We're used to all of that. But it was okay for the 911 not to go there, I think. Then I also mourn the loss of the twister button here, which I know you guys do as well. Everybody's saying the same thing. I don't like the start-stop button. It's awful. I wish we could have had the gear selector here like the GT product cars do, even in PDK, because you can't get manual now, of course, in GTS. I forgot to mention that in the walk-around. You can only get that in the Carrera T. So again, it seems like slowly some things that we love in terms of that analog side are being stripped away from us, and the car seems to be conforming to like the VAR group norm. Now, where instead they could have put a bit of effort and money was the interior, where it's just not up to the standard of some of its rivals like the AMG GT, etc. It's just not on the level of Vantage, you know. It's lovely and it's built like a tank, but you know, those cars are simply just more luxurious. PCM system is fine. It sees some great updates in terms of driving assistance, in terms of the system itself. You've got YouTube in there. You've got great integration with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it's still normal PCM, so it's easy to use. Not that relevant in this. I like the drive mode selector, which is now with the red sports response button and the shinier toggle. It's a bit old, but it's a nice change. No, really, I mean, the best thing about this car is the way it sounds, thanks to that engine. That includes the cold start. Oh. It's a great sounding engine, and the engine is what this is all about. So let's go out, let's drive it, and let's see what we think of the GTS. It must be said, the first 100 yards in this car And I'm sorry if I'm stating the obvious. It really does feel like I'm driving a 911 with a whole new engine. And I must make that clear to you, because this is not some kind of lame, very similar replacement to the 3 litre. This engine immediately feels like a whole different breed. Remember I was saying to you how loud it is in the interior? Listen to that. That's a very different tune. And it's very loud and it's very pronounced, and it really comes in the interior a lot. I'll talk about that. But everything else feels super familiar. You've got your wonderfully communicative front end of the 911, even in this 4. You've got immense amounts of grip because of the all-wheel drive system. So much speed and power, more than I'm used to in GTS. And we're handling these horrible bumps in the UK wonderfully. This is a weapon. Proper weapon, brother. The other thing that's clear immediately as well is the responsiveness of the engine. I'm glad Porsche have readouts for this. Not every manufacturer does. You can see exactly when the e-turbo is spooling, when it's supporting our new 3.6 flat 6. What a first introduction. Now, speaking of first impressions, we do need to do a launch control because it's so important on a car like this, on a new engine, on a new system. Let's see how it manages it. Let's go into Sport Plus. Ooh. 2.74 seconds. That is previous 911 territory for the turbo. I'm pretty sure years ago I tested 992 turbo. Now I'm pretty sure that's the exact figure we got, or very, very close to it, which is such a validation point for Porsche, who are now, they've elevated the price point, yes, of this car, but they've also elevated the horsepower, the standing of it with a new engine. And to achieve that, that's 0.1 second off the 816 horsepower GT63 performance by AMG that I tested recently. That's unbelievable. It's the ferocity of the launch, really, that surprised me. That was not GTS-like at all. So truly feeling more related to 911 Turbo than previous GTS in every way so far, just every way. Let's pop the gearbox into manual. PDK as snappy as it's ever been, which is great, because often when these hybrid systems get added, it sometimes translates into like a lag for the gearboxes that I've experienced, but this is as snappy as a PDK has ever been, so that's great. Is this car, is it too fast for the road now? I wonder, because the speed on this is not just the launch, it's everything. It is, it's so quick. I don't think it's turbo S destructive, and I'm glad about that, because I really like this engine, and I'd hate for it to be a case where I can't enjoy it because it's got too much power. I think the nice thing is lower revs, you know, lower speeds, you can still enjoy the engine quite a lot. It's got, you know, it's got a decent amount of noise, and you feel like you're really tapping into a lot of the reserves. It's not like, you know, a lot is hidden away, but those reserves are so powerful. You just don't expect it with this particular nameplate. The other thing about doing speed in this is that because it's not quite as light as the previous one, it doesn't have that jitteriness on the road. Sometimes extra weight helps cars in stability when it comes to higher speeds, and I really feel that's the case with this. I like that element of the previous GTS Targa, where it just felt slightly more GT Cruiser in that regard. Not to say it's lost any dynamism, good God, it hasn't. But yeah, and I found that on motorways as well, that high-speed stability and comfort a bit better with this car. It's definitely matured also as a GT, which is nice. But God, it's not lost any of its handling vigor, let me tell you. It is just as capable. It's still the samurai sword that the previous car was. I feel like the 4 is somewhat improved actually in its feel. This feels almost indistinguishable to my GTS rear wheel drive of the previous generation. The steering is lovely. It's also assisted by that standard rear wheel steering, which, you know, 911 has grown, and it helps with a longer car to stop any of that inertia of, you know, size and weight. But this thing can handle itself. I could hit a pebble on the road with the front wheel on this car. That's how direct and precise it still is. It's absolutely a 911. Do you feel the extra weight? No, you don't. You do not feel the extra weight. It's hit it, it's gone. You know, the car handles exactly as you said. So just take any reservations about weight, take it out of your mind. And also in terms of comfort, it's been okay. It's still a harsher car. I think PDCC would help dealing with the rougher terrain, and obviously with the anti-roll element, particularly now that it's 400 volt activated, is probably going to be really good. I'm looking forward to trying a car that has that at some point, maybe a different variant of these in a rapid review, we will see. But yeah, it's good enough from such a capable sports car. You know, you're going to be very happy to daily this as well. And it's nice that none of the practicality is sacrificed due to the whole hybrid element in terms of boot space, etc. So I did ask Porsche Press, why does this sound so much louder inside the car? Like, sometimes it sounds louder than my GT3. And Conrad at UK Press came back to me after a few days, luckily today, just as I was about to film. And I was first thinking, is it some kind of speaker sound? Is it something else going on? But the answer I've got direct from Press is that it's less insulation, kind of like they've done in the past with lightweight package, like they've done with the GT cars, which would definitely explain it. It definitely happens when the flaps open, and it sounds good. The other thing is when you come off the throttle, you get this kind of a whoosh, which I assume comes from our E-turbo. It kind of sounds almost like a blow-off valve. It's cool, it's different. Porsche's goal on hybridization for the 911 was always about performance and responsiveness. It was to arm the new flat 6 engine and make it the best that it could possibly be, not fuel efficiency. Nothing to do with EVs. And I feel they designed this whole thing in a way to enhance the traditional 911 experience of keeping the dynamism high, the performance as a focus, the weight low, and the engine as the highlight of the whole experience. So mission accomplished then. This hybridization is almost invisible. It sits in the background and really only makes itself known when you need boost. And even then, it's not something you ever need to think about. It just delivers the power when you need it. And what I like is it does it without any negative side or any downside at all. Much like a mild hybrid car, but much more powerful in what the result is than a mild hybrid. So you end up with much more horsepower and torque, but for little weight penalty. And when you look at AMG using it in a different car, the E-turbo, to much less effect, having to rely on a massive heavy battery, this is a much more convincing concept, particularly for a sports car. The E-turbo is supportive, sitting quietly in the background, smoothing the throttle response, giving massive boost, and then letting the flat 6 do its thing. As for the GTS getting its own engine for the first time, this feels like the car finally maturing into its own. It feels its own model, one very much separated from base Carrera, one very much closer than it ever has been before, now to GT department and indeed to turbo. And as for this T-Hybrid system, this is not a mild evolution. This is a technical leap on par with moving to water-cooled, with moving to turbocharging, and one that seemingly comes with no downsides on this occasion. Like you guys, I cried foul of the price tag when I first saw it, but now having driven it, as a former GTS owner of the 992 generation, I actually think it's worth it, because if this was just a tune and a bump like that car was, I would have told you to go for the base Carrera, and I've said that to so many people I've spoken to in recent years. However, this, with the 3.6, with the T-Hybrid, feels like a different car. It's stepping on the toes of the 911 Turbo while maintaining the purest feel of the GTS, but with its own character, away from all the other 911s. So I'm so pleased to say that our beloved 911's first foray into the world of hybridization isn't that scary at all. In fact, I found the whole thing rather reassuring. See you guys soon. A huge thanks guys for always watching our videos, and a quick reminder that our limited run of the new exhaust on or else t-shirt is currently available on the RBR website. This is a shirt that's never been about the channel, but more about our joint passion for great combustion engines, V8 and V12 sounds, and this is an all new version with some gorgeous details, a much larger metallic logo. This has been designed by us, and we've got some lovely details everywhere, even in the packaging. And it goes from not just the material that I'm using here with the extra stretch, the muscle fit, all the details you see there, and it was all made possible because A, we designed it from the ground up, and B, it was handmade in Pakistan. So I'm really, really proud of this shirt. It's a limited run. I really want you guys to get a hold of one and wear it proudly and show the world your love for great combustion engines. And of course, we still have things like the great RBR keyring to go along with your car. Head over to the RBR website, and again, thanks for watching, and do subscribe to RBR.